Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Wealth Defense Radio, the podcast. I am your host, Josh Nahosa, and I am an independent advisor representative for Swan DFW. That stands for Sleep Well at Night, Dallas, Fort Worth. And I am with a man who is fresh off the Mount Kilimanjaro hike, as he called it, climb, as sane people call it. It is Hector Hinojosa.
Yeah, we're back. We're alive, but we're back.
Yeah, so I think next week's podcast is going to be about that.
Yeah, how investing is like climbing a mountain.
So
Should be fun.
yeah, those of you that follow the channel know we haven't posted a podcast in about a month. So why don't you give the listeners/viewers like a minute of what you were doing in Africa?
Yeah, we went to Tanzania. My youngest son, your brother, Caleb, and a good friend of ours, Kyle, from church, we flew to Tanzania to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Neither Kyle nor I were able to reach the summit, but Caleb was, and more on that later. Then we flew to Uganda and did a really cool mission trip for 2 weeks. And in the midst of that, got to baptize 6 young men, which was not, we didn't go down there to do that. It just kind of happened. And so overall, a very successful mission trip, much more successful than my attempt at Kilimanjaro. But we'll talk about that and tell you why they're creating a shrine for me now at the top, almost at the top of Kilimanjaro.
Yes. So all that will be next week, likely. What are we talking about this week?
Well, this week we continue to have people that don't like the current administration, that don't or didn't like the last administration, and they wanted to stay out of the market. And we're going to talk about how that's a form of market timing, and we're going to compare it to baseball, and hopefully it'll make some sense when we're all said and done, and you'll get a good takeaway.
I guess this week is about getting back to basics in the investing world of trying to block out noise and focus more on what the company is doing versus the outside stuff.
Yeah, right. And it's about, being focused on the long term, not getting caught up in the short term or being distracted, like you called it, noise. That's a really good thing. And so, we want to get back to that. And when we look longer term, it's just, there's a difference between investing and speculating. And we're not speculators, we're investors, we're long-term investors. And so, what we're going to talk about today is what should you do? And we'll talk about that.
So let's get right into it. What should we do?
There are some people right now that are out of the market because they don't like the politics. And there were some people in the last administration that were out of the market because they didn't like the politics, they didn't like the administration, and they just didn't like it. Well, those people that sat out the last administration missed back-to-back 20% years. That's not a good thing. And this year, although we had a pullback at the beginning, from the pullback, we're running way ahead. And it looks like the second half of the year is going to be really good. And so the market isn't about the politics. It's not about, all the short-term noise, to make your point. It's about companies. It's about earnings. It's about balance sheets. You take a good company that's in a good sector. You take one of the leaders that's a good balance sheet that's making money, and you buy it and you hold it until it's not a favorite anymore. You're not marrying it. You're just going to hold on to it until it's time to buy another company. And you got to let everything else just not bother you, not keep you away from your goal.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, at least in the retirement world, it's all about trying to grow your investable assets so that you're able to retire with a larger pool of money, and taking your money out kind of eliminates some of the growth, and then you're not keeping up with inflation and you have less buying power and all that. So it's a whole domino effect.
Yeah. And, a rule in investing, especially retirement investing, is, finishing the race with more money is better than finishing the race with less money. We should probably write that down somewhere.
Yeah. I can't have you be this controversial on the podcast.
Let's see if we don't get a cease and desist letter from Taylor Swift. Is that who you got yours from? But yeah, and so because you like baseball so much, your cousin coached the baseball team while I was there. He's coaching an all-star team, and it was really interesting to me. So I was standing behind the catcher, and the first game that I went to at 8:30 in the morning, because it gets really, really hot there really, really fast. The first umpire that I saw calling balls and strikes had a really low and outside strike zone. Everybody knows the rule about the strike zone, knees to letters and over the plate. But when a pitcher, and you're a former pitcher, you may be able to attest to this, the first few batters, you're trying to figure out what your stuff is, but you're also trying to figure out where the strike zone for this, what this umpire likes. Is that a true statement?
Sure.
Yeah. And so that first day, it didn't take very long to see that anything close to being over the plate, low and outside, he liked. And so he was calling those strikes. And so the pitcher made an adjustment, and the pitchers, all of them, because he was calling it the same way for everybody. And then, they got their rhythm, and then everything was good. The good news is both of these umpires called it equal for both sides, called it the same. On the second time I went over there, his third game, it was a different umpire, and this umpire didn't like the low outside strike zone, but he liked low and inside. And anything that was close to being low, around the knees and around the plate, he would call a strike, different than the other guy. So what does that have to do with what we're trying to talk about, investing? The rules are the rules, right? We talked about companies making good stuff. We talked about earnings. We talked balance sheet. Just like the strike zone is the strike zone no matter what. But there are some nuances sometimes that you just need to find. You need to find what the market strike zone is, and then play in that strike zone, and know that if you've got companies that are in that zone, they're going to do really, really well. And you may think about moving some assets that maybe are not in that strike zone into that zone. Well, that's different than getting out of the market completely and missing the moves. And so you just have to adjust the portfolios and not come out of the market. Sadly, we had a client that at the very worst, at the very, very bottom, just finally got tired and panicked and pulled out. And they were out of the market as the market roared back, gained everything it had lost, and is up even more. And that's the problem with trying to get in and out of the market. And this is fairly typical. You get out at exactly the wrong time, and then you get back in at not the right time. So two wrongs do not make a right. We should write that one down too. Boy, I'm really controversial today.
Yeah, I think the human nature, you're never really pulling out your money when things are going really well.
Right.
So the human nature is, I've lost... there's been a 15% dip or whatever that number was, a 10% dip, we'll call it, in the market. I don't want to lose anymore. Let me just pull out and then wait until it recovers and looks better. But then by the time, if you take out 10% of your money and it bounces back 15%, you've lost 15% of your buying power. It may be more stable, potentially, but you've lost purchasing power, buying power, money.
Yeah. And you end up with less money. It's counterintuitive sometimes. This particular client, we had long conversations about whether they should stay in, but they just pulled the trigger. And so that is when we get hurt. So stay in the market, maybe adjust the portfolio a tad. Don't take money out and keep it out, especially if you're taking money out because you've had a big run. Well, that's a little bit different. We can talk about that later. But we're still talking about the people that are not in the market because they don't like what's going on in the country. And I'm going, okay, but that's politics. This is investing. Let's keep the two games separate and understand that winning at this game is staying invested long term. Market doesn't seem to care whether it's a Republican or Democrat president. It doesn't seem to care whether it's a Republican or Democrat Congress. What it cares about is companies, earnings, and balance sheets.
Yeah, we have a podcast somewhere on YouTube that is we've talked about before. It doesn't matter Democrat or Republican president. The market just kind of does its own thing regardless of that. And people like to blame the president for bad times and then maybe not for good times. And that's not always entirely fair because the market's its own entity. But to go back to the baseball thing, if the Democrat or Republican is your umpire, you kind of just are pitching to that. We just had 20% years, I think your notes say, under a Democratic umpire, and now we're having a really good year under a Republican umpire. So it can happen under both, and it does happen under both.
That's right. And we're set up for a good second half of the year, and so people, I think, should be fully invested. Again, this is not an actionable thing. But check with your advisor or check with us and make sure that you're well diversified. But yeah, I think it looks like from unemployment to inflation, looks like we're set up for a pretty good second half of the year, and don't miss it, because the stock market, whatever that is, doesn't send you we missed you at the party, or man, we're sad you didn't make any money. It just goes on. So get on the bus, stay on the bus, and good things will happen.
Yeah. What else you got?
Well, that's about it. I'm looking forward to next week talking about how investing is like climbing a mountain. I will tell you it was an exciting time. I will tell you it was harrowing because we had to be rescued off the mountain. It was good. It was maybe a once in a lifetime, although it could be a twice in a lifetime, because since I didn't make the summit, considering maybe going back. But we'll see. We'll see if sanity is restored to myself in the next little while.
Yes. For those of you maybe that don't know, Hector can be quite stubborn at times.
Never.
So,
if people would just do exactly what I want them to do, life would just be easy and I wouldn't be stubborn. See?
There you go. I think that's probably likely true of a lot of people. If you have any questions about any of the things that you just heard about, we have a couple different ways that you can contact us. The first way is via phone number, and that is 888-792-6339, which spells out SWAN DFW. It's 888-792-6339. Or if you prefer written correspondence, we have an email address, and that is info@swandfw.net. And that can be a question about yourself, or maybe a question that you'd like answered on the podcast.
Yeah. Or a question about mountain climbing, because now I'm going to start every answer with, well, as an experienced mountain climber.
Yes, such an experienced mountain climber. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
We'll catch you all in the next one.
Thank you. God bless.
The preceding content is informational only and based on information available when created. It is not an offer or solicitation, nor is it tax or legal advice. It does not consider your financial circumstances and objectives and may not be suitable for you.